It seems to be two things, Bev. There was the hope of extending beyond August 31st, next Tuesday. That door's been closed. You know, when the director of the CIA meets with the incoming Taliban head and doesn't get an answer, you know, there's no more hope there. And you need a couple of days before that door closes to pull out US military personnel. So it's kind of natural that it'll be wrapping up. But also it seems like there's been a lot of intelligence coming through, presumably signals intercepts when they're picking up radio or phone calls, that makes them really worried. And they're particularly worried about this Islamic State affiliate that's been in Afghanistan these last half dozen years. Not very large a number, just a few thousand fighters probably. But we think they were responsible for a number of attacks, including, you might recall, the attack on a girls' school, terrible attack just a few months ago. So they use suicide bombing as a technique, very hard to prevent that. And so there is a lot of anxiety, and that would explain why we get this fluctuating news about go to the airport, don't go to the airport, not safe, stay away, because they're picking up these messages that somebody's planning something.
And how quickly could a group like this organise, as you say, if it's a suicide attack, somebody sort of indiscreet, like a woman going to the airport, would it be hard to pick up?
It's very hard to pick up in terms of preventing it at the last minute. So it's a crowded place. So in a sense, it's this big soft target. It doesn't really matter where they get. They would probably like to get US or other foreign military personnel, which means they have to get closer. They clearly have cells in Kabul city. They've had attacks in Kabul city before. So even though we think of the Taliban as being all powerful and in charge, you know, they're fighting their own sort of splinter rival group, and they risk some of their members who get dissatisfied with perhaps what they see as too many compromises, tipping over and joining the Islamic State affiliate. So it's a fraught situation in which no one is in control. It's also possible that some elements of the Taliban could be responsible for violence and then blame it on Islamic State Khorasan.
And that's a good point. Does it feed into the Taliban's aims and ambitions to potentially sow some discord, to sow further chaos?
It would certainly help them going into next week. You know, they've put this red line to the US and others saying, get out, we told you Tuesday is the limit. And so for some reason they stay beyond that and there's an attack, Taliban can say, if it wasn't us, but we warned you, there's people here we can't control. It gives them plausible deniability, which I'm sure they'd be keen to use, because the Taliban is very keen to get international funding and recognition from their neighbours, including China. They want this to be a long-term project. So it's against their interest to have a terror attack. So should something happen from their guys or somebody else, they want to wash their hands of it and step away and say, look, we warned you, but we can't control everything.
If they are these sort of gangs within Taliban, these splinter groups, what does it mean for any form of stability under Taliban rule?
Look, it's really worrying for multiple reasons, not least that the Taliban really haven't changed. Taliban 2.0 is really a marketing spin. Yeah, they've got better at communications. They use smartphones and social media, but they're still the same old Taliban. But they've always been a federation, a kind of a tribal federation. So it's individual commanders in different provinces that call the shots literally on the ground. They don't have complete control of that. And there's factions. Some want a more religious hard line, even harder line. Some might see that negotiating, becoming a formal government involves compromises they don't like. So there's lots of tensions and places for things to go wrong.
Greg, if foreign nationals can't get out by the deadline, is it possible to get out after? I mean, the US talks about using every weapon or mechanism at their disposal to make sure that does happen, but are there any guarantees?
Well, there's no guarantees in any of these things, Bev. I think we've got to give credit where it's due, though. Having started much too late and made so many mistakes, the US and others, including the Australian Defence Force, have just done marvellous work in lifting out 100,000 people. This is one of the biggest airlifts in history. So that is good, better than we feared it would be. You mentioned using every bit of leverage, even after the 31st of August, when international forces go out, Australia goes out. As I said, the Taliban still want money. They've got their financial reserves, the Federal Reserves locked up in America and other accounts. They want to negotiate with their neighbours. They want to be recognised. So there's some scope to have leverage over them. It's a really difficult business dealing with this sort of group. But I think it's worth persevering. to try and limit the brutality of the Taliban, particularly towards women and minority groups, but also to keep open the opportunity that some people might be able to leave even after this. This talk that Kandahar airport may open for international flights, that Mazar-e-Sharif airport might open for international flights. This may be to Pakistan or to Iran, but that's okay. There may still be chances yet. So we've got to go as fast and as hard as we can. But even after next Tuesday, we shouldn't give up, and we should still keep engaging with Afghanistan and with this new Taliban regime to try and do as much good as we can.
Very fraught situation. Thanks, Greg, as always, for your insights.
Great chatting, though. Thank you.